Free agent relievers are flying off the shelves, and the Atlanta Braves have yet to grab one up. We'll talk about that on today's episode of Locked On Braves. Do they already have enough pin arms? Do they need more? What is left available? All that on today's episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Jake Mastriani. You can follow me on social media at Shortstop Ball. Check out the podcast there at LockedOn_Braves. Make sure if you're new and watch this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up button, and leave me a comment down below. If you're listening on the audio version, you can help out by leaving me a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. We got our mailbag episode coming up on a Friday. Look for a post from me on LockedOn_Braves. Submit your question to that post to be answered on Friday's episode. Looking forward to that. But before we do that, let's get into today's episode where we're going to be talking about the bullpen. It seems like the reliever market is really heating up right now. A lot of arms being snatched up, and the Braves have yet to get one of them. So we'll talk about that. We'll look at the Braves bullpen right now. Do they have enough arms already? Is there much of a need for another one? Spoiler alert, yes, there is. And we'll look at what's left out there and a lot of news. Like I said, a lot of signings happening over the last couple of days. We'll get into all that on today's episode. Super Bowl 59 is here, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. All right, we're going to talk a lot about the bullpen today. I feel like that's been a topic going around here lately, and you're just seeing a lot of free agent arms coming off the board. So how I want to start this off today is I want to look at the arms that the Braves do have going into 2025, and is there a real need? Do you feel like there's a real need for the Braves to go out and get a bullpen? Certainly, you always want to have as many arms as you can. I think that's where I am right now, but if the Braves went into the year with this bullpen, could it be a good bullpen? I think is the question that I want to answer in this first segment. I think we probably would all agree that, yes, we'd like to see the Braves go out and get some more help for the bullpen. But I think the question I want to try to answer in this first segment is the bullpen that's currently intact. If no moves are made, is this bullpen good enough to succeed? So let's start with the core of this bullpen. There are now 4 core arms in this bullpen with the loss of Joe Jimenez to injury, AJ Minter obviously being signed by the Mets as a free agent. There's now a core 4 in this bullpen of Raisel Iglesias as the closer, Pierce Johnson, Aaron Bummer, and Dylan Lee. Those are most likely going into the season will be the 4 arms that Brian Snitker is going to lean on in high leverage situations. Raisel Iglesias last year, 66 games, a 1.95 ERA, a 0.74 whip, 34 saves, just an 8.83 K per nine, not a strikeout specialist, but a 1.69 walk per nine. Doesn't walk anybody, and just a 202 batting average against. Doesn't give up a lot of hits. Now, I would expect some regression there with Raisel Iglesias. He was so good last year, especially up until I believe it was the last month of the season. He was just unreal. So I would expect some regression for him just because the numbers he put up last year, I mean, those are really good numbers. And some years would probably get you some Cy Young votes with the way that he pitched. So I would expect him to take a little bit of a step back, but I still expect Raisel Iglesias to be a really good reliever. Nothing you see in the data suggests that he's going to be taking a huge step back, and that there's big regression coming for the guy who just turned 35 on my birthday as well. Unfortunately, I'm just a couple years older than him, but I still think he's going to be very, very good this upcoming season. I would not expect him to just all of a sudden fall apart. I love his pitch mix. I don't care that it's not a strikeout type of pitcher, which I know is what most people want as their closer role, but give me somebody that's basically unhittable, pitches moving all over the place, good command, doesn't walk anybody, doesn't give up a lot of home runs. I am certainly fine with that in my closer's role. So I don't have any real concern or worry about Raisel Iglesias being my closer. Pierce Johnson, 58 games last year, a 3.67 ERA, a 1.30 whip. I don't love those. I mean, 3.67 ERA for a reliever, that's fine because, reliever ERAs can be changed by a couple of bad outings here or there. I do feel like he probably pitched better than that overall, but it was kind of an up and down season for Pierce Johnson. A 1.30 whip, though, not great. I don't love that, but a 10.7 K per nine is certainly very good. 3.99 walk per nine certainly is a big contributor to that whip being up. I'd like to see that more around 3. A 309 batting average against, it's not super high, but obviously it's a little bit of bad luck in there as well. I think of this group, the people in this core group, Pierce Johnson maybe worries me the most. He fooled everybody coming over from Colorado to the Braves, that curveball and throwing it a bunch. And you wonder if the hitters started to adjust to him a little bit last year. And it's why maybe you didn't see him be quite as sharp as he was the year before. So I think of the guys in this core group, Pierce Johnson's the one I worry about the most. And that's not ideal because, obviously with Iglesias being your closer, Pierce Johnson's your other righty that you have in this core group with Bummer and Lee being lefties. So I'd say Pierce Johnson's the one in this core that worries me the most. Now for Aaron Bummer, 56 games last year, a 3.58 ERA. I bet if I polled most Braves fans and said who had the higher ERA last year, Pierce Johnson or Aaron Bummer, almost everybody would have said Aaron Bummer. But he had a 3.58 ERA. Now, he did have a 1.43 whip, and that is not good, and it wasn't inflated by his walk rate. His walk rate was 2.93, which is fine, a 2.93 K per nine, 2.93 walk per nine. However, he had a 388 batting average on balls in play. And that's sometimes the tricky thing with Aaron Bummer, because he's generally in there to get a ground ball. Now it is a 11.22 K per nine last year, so he certainly can get the strikeouts, but he is typically a guy that's going to put the ball on the ground, and sometimes you can get BABIP to death, but a 388 batting average on balls in play, there was a lot of bad luck for Aaron Bummer last year. So I expect him to bounce back, but maybe not, because that's kind of been the deal with Aaron Bummer for most of his career. It feels like he should be better than what the numbers indicate, but I still think he's going to be fine. I think he's a guy that's going to come in. They can face righties or lefties, try to get you a ground ball. I think Aaron Bummer is going to be that guy, and you're going to see him utilized more in a setup role this year. Dylan Lee, to me, can be that guy. I also think he might be that bridge guy that comes in and gives you an inning in a third. Maybe you got a tough lefty to get out of the 7th inning. He gets that guy, and you bring him back out for the 8th or something like that. Now, his numbers last year, 52 games, a 2.11 ERA, a 1.11 whip, 11.46 K per nine, a 2.56 walk per nine, and a 302 batting average on balls in play. So those numbers are fantastic. And it's also the 300 BABIP. So it tells you that, it's not like it was the numbers he was putting up were fluky at all. So I think Dylan Lee is going to be a big part of this bullpen. I think those 4 guys going into the year, those are going to be your core 4. And like I said, I feel pretty confident in Iglesias and Dylan Lee. I mostly feel good about Aaron Bummer. Pierce Johnson does worry me a little bit. Now, the next tier behind them, which is a tier of 1, is Daysbel Hernandez. And I think this is a guy we're all looking for to step up in the bullpen this year. And I'm going to have to move along with these names here. But Daysbel Hernandez last year, a 2.50 ERA, a 1.11 whip, 13 K per nine. Those are great right there if I just stopped right there. Now, to be fair, a lot of those were in lower leverage situations, which I do think matters if you're coming in a blowout game, compared to coming in the 7th, 8th inning and facing, the middle of the team's lineup trying to secure a lead. That's different. But the one thing that the Daysbel has struggled with and will continue to struggle with is the walks. And it was a walk per nine of 5 last year. That's got to get under control. It's got to come down, but he certainly has really good stuff. And we're really hoping that he turns into that big setup reliever this year and adds that group, can be another righty for that group. Like I said, if there is some more regression for Pierce Johnson, maybe Daysbel Hernandez can fill in that role. Now, a guy we're hopeful for is Angel Perdomo. In 2023, the lefty pitched 29 innings, a 3.72 ERA, a 1.10 whip. It's all really solid. A 37.6% K rate. That is elite. A 9.4% walk rate is okay. But again, when you're striking out 38% of the batters you're facing, you can deal with the walks a little bit. Don't know what he's going to look like coming back from Tommy John surgery, missing all of last year. I'm sure there's going to be some rust, but certainly hopeful that he can be a big part of the bullpen in 2025. Now, the next tier here there might be something there with these guys. Anderson Pilar, the guy they took in the Rule 5 draft in 2024 at AAA, 15 innings pitched, 11 hits, 7 walks, 22 strikeouts, a really good cutter. Obviously, being a Rule 5 pick, the Braves are going to have to keep him on the roster or offer him back to his former team. So there's a good chance that he makes the roster, but we'll see. I don't know. It's a bit of an unknown because we don't know what he looks like at the big league level, but he could be, a nice addition to the bullpen. Roldy Munoz, 2024 at AA, a 3.98 ERA, a 1.28 WHIP, 40 2/3 innings, 34 hits, 18 walks, 56 strikeouts. Big strikeout stuff here from Munoz, but again, coming from AA, I don't think this will be anybody out the gate, but maybe somebody further down the road. Same for Hayden Harris and Domingo Gonzalez. I was surprised that Harris didn't get a spring training invite. He did last year, I believe. I know he was at least in spring training last year, and we saw him in some games. And I'll be honest, upon watching him in the spring training games last year, I wasn't too impressed with him. But you can't really argue with the numbers that he's put up in the minor leagues, at least at AA. I know he struggled going to AAA last year, but he still had a 14.3 K per 9 in AAA last year. So again, might be another guy. Munoz, Harris, Gonzalez might be some guys that we see later on. They added Domingo Gonzalez to the 40-man roster this offseason. He put up some big numbers at AA and AAA last year. And then another tier here, if they don't make the rotation, Grant Holmes and Ian Anderson could fit into the bullpen. We saw Grant Holmes do it last year, kind of go back and forth. Not sure about Ian Anderson, if that works out for him, if that would be something he would be able to transition to. But one of those guys, certainly could be inserted into the bullpen as a bulk reliever, setup type of guy, bridge guy, like a Dylan Lee, something like that. So there's more options there. And then the non-roster invitees, Chasen Shreve, Jordan Weems, who had an awful 2024, but was really good in 2023, had a 194 average against in 2023. Wander Suero, a 2.66 ERA, a 1.20 WHIP at AAA last year, with 71 strikeouts in 67 2/3 innings. Royber Salinas has always had good stuff, but struggles with control. Maybe getting him into that bullpen role, the Braves can find something there. Anoli Paredes, a 1.66 ERA and a 106 WHIP at the big league level last year, but in just 21 2/3 innings. And then Intel De Los Santos, 66 strikeouts and 64 innings pitched at the big league level last year. So there is certainly a lot of depth, but I wouldn't say it's depth that I'm all that confident in. So to answer the question I started out this segment with, could this bullpen be good enough? Yes, I think it could be. I'm not very confident in that, because if Pierce Johnson takes a step back, if Aaron Bummer continues to have the BABIP issues, and expecting Raisel Iglesias to take at least some of a step back because his numbers last year were just ridiculous, who's making up for that? Are you counting on an unproven Daysbel Hernandez and Angel Perdomo coming back from injury, a Rule 5 pick in Pilar? I mean, who are you really counting on that you feel confident? Like I said, Daysbel, I feel pretty confident that if he gets the command issues under control, he could be a setup guy. But outside of that, I don't know. There's not anybody in here that I really feel all that confident in. Even a Nick Anderson, a non-roster invitee, we had on a split deal several years ago. I think you could look at him and say, okay, he's done it in the past before and has a good track record. If he gets it together, there could be something there. I don't necessarily see that with the non-roster invitees they have this year. So again, if everything goes well, if Iglesias pitches like he can, Johnson, Bummer, Lee, if Daysbel takes the step up, if Perdomo looks like he did in 2023 before he went down to have Tommy John surgery, I think this could be one of the best bullpens in baseball. I think that's a big if and a huge question mark. And I still think they need to go out and find another reliever on the free agent market. The problem is those guys are getting snatched up like crazy here this week. There's not a lot left. We'll look at what's left, and I'll tell you who's been signed here next. Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, two teams, endless possibilities, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action with live betting all game long. You can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's the icing on the cake. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Also, please make sure you visit FanDuel.com/playsafe for tools and resources to help you stay in control of the way that you play. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. Thanks as always for making Locked On Braves your first listen of the day. Go check out Locked On MLB for your second listen. Sully catching up with all these moves happening around Major League Baseball and getting you set for spring training. We're almost here. February happens this weekend, and we will not be too far away from pitchers and catchers reporting, spring training games, and we'll finally be able to talk about some stuff happening on the field. So looking forward to that. But let's look at what is left, because the offseason is not over, and there are actually some big names still out there. Alex Bregman, a Pete Alonso, a Jack Flaherty. There are still some big names out there. There's still some smaller names out there too that the Braves can potentially take advantage of. And the guy that's been at the top of my list, if you've been listening for a while, and I know many of you have, everydayers on here comment, David Robertson is easily at the top of my list. 39-year-old, I know, right-handed pitcher. But the last 3 years combined, he's had a 2.92 ERA, a 1.16 whip, and a 205 batting average against. It's 11.6 K per nine over that span, 3.8 walk per nine, not great. Again, I always love to see that more around 3, but a 45.8% ground ball rate, so getting it on the ground nearly half the time. That cutter that he has is just, he's figured out a way to continue to improve it and manipulate it, and it's just become a deadly pitch for him. It had a run value of plus 19 last year and a run value of plus 14 the year before. So it's a veteran, postseason experience. He's from Alabama, so maybe you'll get that hometown discount that AA is always looking for. I just feel like it's the ideal fit. It's the perfect fit for what the Braves need. They need another veteran voice out there. They need somebody who's obviously good and can sit in that setup role to replace Joe Jimenez. And he's been one of the best relievers in baseball the last 3 years and very consistent in doing so. So I just think he makes a lot of sense, especially you get him on a 1-year deal, 6-7 million, something like that. I think David Robertson makes a ton of sense. Now, some other names I'm just going to shoot off here, guys that kind of stood out to me. Kenley Jansen, Craig Kimbrell. Jansen, I'm not really all that excited about possibly going down that road again. The heart issues for Kenley Jansen just scare me. I honestly think the guy just needs to call it quits and relax and take care of himself health-wise. Obviously, he can still be really good when he pitches. I'm not really excited about the potential of that signing. I'm not really excited about Craig Kimbrell either, although I will say, even at times over the last couple of years where there have been some disasters for him, at times he still looks like the dominant Craig Kimbrell. So if you get him, again, at the right price, I think there's potential there. You just have to be very careful when you see Craig Kimbrell start to slip and fade, that you pull the plug and you start putting him in some more lower leverage situations. But I still think he has the same type of stuff. It's still a big fastball with the knuckle curve. So again, at the right price, I wouldn't hate a reunion for Kimbrell, but I'm not shouting at the rooftops to bring him back either. Danny Coulimbay, 30. I know I just butchered that name, but 35 years old, left-handed pitcher. Seems to be a lot of talk about him here recently. Robert Murray reporting that a lot of teams interested in him, and this is why. When healthy the last 3 years, he's been really good. A 2.75 ERA, a 106 whip, a 217 average against, a 9.3 K per nine, a 2.3 walk per nine, really, really good, and a 43.6% ground ball rate. Tough on lefties with his cutter sweeper combo. So again, if the Braves interested in getting another lefty, now again, you have to consider the Braves are probably going to be carrying Bummer, Lee, and Perdomo on the roster. Assuming Perdomo, is good to go, and I don't know why he wouldn't be as a reliever. you already potentially have 3 lefties you're carrying. So it's not crucial that they get another one. But again, I think it certainly wouldn't hurt. I think Danny, what I'm going to call him, would be a good target for them to go after. Same for Andrew Chafin, 35-year-old left-handed pitcher, high whiff rates, does walk a good bit, but again, would not be a bad target for a left-handed pitcher as well if that's what you wanted to go after. Kyle Finnegan, a guy we've talked about a lot from the right-handed side. He's pitched over 60 innings in 4 straight years. So he's been very durable. And over that time, he's had an ERA between 3.51 and 3.76 with a whip around 1.3. I don't love that whip. It's a bit higher than what I like. But again, for a reliever, you can kind of deal with that and live with that. But he's been very consistent. He's been very durable over the last 4 years. The strikeout rate isn't as high as you would think for a guy who averages 97 miles per hour with his 4-seamer and has a splitter to go off of that. But maybe the Braves can fix that and unlock some more strikeout potential in him. But I think he obviously would be a really good target. So those are some of the top targets for me. David Robertson, Danny Coulombe, Andrew Chafin, Kyle Finnegan. Those are probably the top candidates left out there for me. Some other names that just popped off: Lucas Sims, Shelby Miller, just, some guys, some reunions there. Sims struggled with injuries the last couple of years, high walk rates, not somebody, again, that I'm shouting to get, but if you get him on a minor league deal, try to prove himself. I know I know he did have some words for the Brave system after he left, so have to get over that, but maybe some upside there. Shelby Miller, he was good for a time last year with the Tigers. He was really good for the Dodgers the year before that. He's had a whip under 1 the last 2 years. If you can't tell by now, I love guys who have low whips because I don't like when runners get on base. And when you have low whips, that's exactly what you're not doing. You're not putting runners on base. His 4-seam rates very well, but not a lot of swing and miss stuff for Shelby Miller. Again, could be another guy maybe you get on a minor league deal and has some potential there. Adam Ottavino, 39-year-old right-handed pitcher, had a 198 expected batting average against last year and a 28.6% strikeout rate. So again, kind of similar to David Robertson, just a veteran guy that continues to get it done. Some other names I wrote down here: Luke Jackson. I don't think anybody is clamoring for him to come back. Tim Hill, kind of deceptive lefty there. Matt Moore, another lefty. Tyler Matzik, another lefty. Jake Diekman, Lou Trevino, Colin Poche. All some interesting names, some arms out there, some veterans as well. So there's still a good bit left that the Braves could do. The top options, I think, are pretty much gone at this point. Like I said, if I'm picking, I'm trying to either get David Robertson or Kyle Finnegan are probably my top 2 options, especially if you're wanting a righty, which I think is what the Braves are needing. If you're trusting Bummer and Lee and you feel pretty confident about Bertomo coming back, then I think you're set with lefties. I think you more so need a righty to replace Jimenez. And like I said, I'm a little worried about Pierce Johnson. So I'd be going after David Robertson or Kyle Finnegan. Those are my top 2 options right now for the Braves bullpen. And like I said, I think the bullpen they have could be good, but I'd feel much better if they went out and just got one of those guys this offseason. Next, we'll get to some of the news of the day, some big signings: Max Scherzer, Jorge Polanco, Ha-Sung Kim, and also some relievers that are going off the board, including one that the Braves were said to be interested in. We'll talk about that here next. We are starting to see more free agents sign, and it's almost February, like I said, so they need to be signing here pretty quickly. Jorge Polanco signed a 1-year deal with the Mariners for $7.75 million, where he'll play third base. So that's interesting. We'll see how that works out. Max Scherzer gets a 1-year, $15.5 million from the Blue Jays. So Justin Verlander got 15. Charlie Morton got 15. I talked about all these veteran guys that I don't even really like. And they're getting $15 million. So it kind of is what it is. If you want a veteran on a 1-year deal, that's what you're going to have to pay them to come play a year for you. I would not have given that to any of those guys. I don't feel that confident in any of them. Scherzer was the one I probably feel the best about, that I think still has, I don't want to say top of the rotation upside, but a guy that I still think could pitch to a 2 or 3, more so than a Morton or a Verlander. So I understand him getting that $500,000 more. But still, I think that's a pretty big price tag for some guys that might not give you anything if they can't stay healthy, at least in the terms of Verlander and Scherzer. At least, with Morton, you're getting some durability. But guys that I think even when healthy might be pitching to back of the rotation type of levels. The Rays signed Ha-Seong Kim to a 2-year deal worth $29 million. He'll make $13 million in 2025. That can go up to $15 million with incentives. I would not have hated this deal for the Atlanta Braves. Again, he's going to miss the first couple of months of the season. But again, I'm not upset necessarily that they didn't go out and sign him to this deal. When I was talking about the potential of the Braves signing him, I was thinking a 1-year deal, $12 million. But I wouldn't have hated them doing this deal, with that opt-out, knowing that if Kim does come back from the injury, has a really good second half of the season, he could opt out and go back to free agency. So, again, there's unknown and not knowing what he's going to look like coming back from this injury. So you take some risk in that. I think there's just bigger holes to fill as well for the Braves. I know everybody wants the upgrade at shortstop, but I think finding some more depth for the rotation and for the bullpen is more important than upgrading from Orlando Arcia, who, again, if everybody's doing what they're supposed to do and Arcia is batting ninth and playing good defense, I think the Braves are fine. But again, I would not have hated that deal for the Atlanta Braves. Ryan Stanek was a reliever the Braves were said to have interest in, but he goes back to the New York Mets for $4.5 million. Not a bad deal there. Tommy Kahnle signs a 1-year deal with the Tigers for $7.75 million, and Carlos Estevez gets a 2-year deal for $20 million from the Royals. So again, a lot of relievers coming off the board, and the Dodgers finalized their deal with Kirby Yates, 1 year, $13 million. So a pretty big price tag there, which we figured would be the case for Kirby Yates coming off just an insane year that he had last season. You knew he was going to get somewhere around 13, 15. That's actually low. I thought he might get 15 million for 1 year, but he gets 13 million to go to the Dodgers. So a lot of bullpen arms coming off the board. We'll probably see a lot more in the days to come, and hopefully we see the Braves among them. Some minor league deals. The Reds signed Wade Miley to a minor league deal. I would love to get a deal like that for a veteran pitcher on a minor league deal. It's hard to convince them to come in because they're going to go wherever they think they have the best chance to get a rotation spot and pitch. It's hard to convince, a veteran to sign a minor league deal for the Braves, knowing that, they don't have a lot of spots open. It's going to be hard to get in there. So a lot of these guys are going to go where they feel like they have the best chance to get in a rotation and stick in a rotation. While Wade Miley might come in and fit as the 5th starter for the first couple of weeks of the year until Spencer Strider's back. After Spencer Strider's back, everybody's healthy. He's probably going to get kicked to the curb. So a lot of those guys, those veterans, they're just looking for a spot where they think they have the best chance to get in a rotation and stay there. But I still would love to see the Braves, do a deal like that for a veteran like Wade Miley. The Padres signed Braves legend Forrest Wall to a minor league deal. The Reds acquired Taylor Rogers from the Giants, so some more bullpen action there. The Tigers DFA'd Alex Faedo. The Dodgers DFA'd Ryan Brazier. So a couple of interesting relievers now being added to the mix. The Braves could possibly go after there. Neftali Feliz, not a name I have heard in a long time, but he signs a minor league deal with the Mariners. He last played in the majors in 2021. He's been playing in the Mexican League the last 3 years. Many Braves fans obviously familiar with that name and the trade with the Rangers, but I had no idea he was even still pitching. So I thought that was interesting. The Cubs and Padres have discussed a deal for Dylan Cease. I don't know what the Cubs are doing. They traded for Kyle Tucker. They have not locked him up long-term yet. Now they're looking to trade for possibly 1 year of Dylan Cease. Are Cubs really trying to make a run in 2025? Maybe I'm missing something on the Cubs, but it feels like they're trying to gear up for a 1 year run here, going after, Kyle Tucker for 1 year, Dylan Cease for 1 year. Maybe they get those guys extended, but just curious offseason here for the Cubs. Certainly in that division, I think, with some of the moves they've made, and if they were to make that type of move, I think they'd be one of the favorites in the division. And so a winnable division for them. And you get to the postseason, anything can happen, certainly. Just very, very interesting offseason, I think, for the Cubs. The White Sox and Reds have discussed a Luis Robert trade, but it sounded like they didn't get very far in those discussions. So a lot of news starting to happen here. And again, we're almost into February, so this stuff needs to get solidified here pretty quickly. Jeffrey Humphrey says Arcia's defense is sufficient, and if the remainder of the team gets back to normal, he'll be fine in the 9-hole. Absolutely. I mean, I would, you know me, my handle is shortstop ball. I would love to have, my favorite shortstop in there. But I think he can certainly get it done. Kevin Hunt, Cease will come to Atlanta in 26. I think. I don't think so. Hey, maybe the Braves are staying under the tax, and next offseason they're going to go sign Bo Bichette to a big deal. They're going to go sign Dylan Cease to a big deal. Maybe that'll happen. I'm a bit skeptical that will be the case. Isaac Bowman, think Brent Honeywell has anything left? Possibly, top prospect. Again, there's still some interesting arms out there, especially if you can get guys like that on a minor league deal. Then I'm all for it. There's not really anything. There's not a bad minor league deal. So a guy with some prospect pedigree hasn't quite gotten it going. Why not take a chance? Chris Hester, I still think that we will get 2 more arms before opening day. I hope so, Chris. I certainly hope so. Look, the Profar signing got us all excited and optimistic again. But if you don't follow that out and finish off your offseason needs by getting that depth, and I'm not asking for much. Give me a Jose Quintana. Give me a Kyle Gibson. Give me a David Robertson. Give me a Kyle Finnegan. I'm not saying all those guys. Just give me, one of a David Robertson or a Kyle Gibson. Give me one of a David Robertson or a Kyle Finnegan. Give me one of a Jose Quintana or a Kyle Gibson is what I was trying to say. I'm not asking for a lot here, but I'd be a little disappointed if we finished the offseason and they didn't find one of those guys to provide you some depth in the pitching staff. So I hope you're right, Chris. I hope there are at least 2 more moves coming for arms. I think that's the biggest need that they have. Like I said, this bullpen could be really good if all those guys stay healthy, if they pitch like they're capable of, if Daysbel Hernandez takes a step forward, if Perdomo looks good coming back from not pitching for a year and a half. It's just a lot of ifs. I don't feel as confident in this bullpen. And the one thing that Alex Anthopoulos has really done well since 2019 is made sure that he overhauled in the bullpen. I mean, we've gone into years where they are already 8 deep in the bullpen with arms that are going to be there and that you trust, with more waiting in the wings at the minor league level. I don't feel that way right now. And I certainly think more needs to be done to that. And I think Alex will. I'm confident. I'm hopeful that he will. But again, need to see it because spring training starts here in a couple of weeks. I need to see some of this stuff take place. All right, thank you so much for joining me today. Jeffrey Humphreys, Jason McCray, Justin Caraway, Jeff Barry, Trey Peters. Yes, I also missed Wild Bill, but I'm excited for Sean Murphy and the season coming up. Michael Salo in here as well. Thank you all for joining me live. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube if you're new. Hit that thumbs up button. Leave me a comment down below. Thanks for making this your first listen of the day. Go check out Locked On MLB for your second listen. Make sure that you follow us on social media at Shortstop Ball and at LockedOn_Braves. Make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast, and we will talk to you next time.